Hope and a plan are going to put you ahead of at least 80% of people in the modern era. I was watching a bunch of YouTube videos about AI and how it's coming to take over my job, which is true to a degree, because like even in California, in the trucking industry, they have a AI self-drive truck in the trucking industry where they can just drive to places. And even out here in Vegas, we know, like those Waymos, like we have those. So it's not like it's not coming. It's already here. It's really just legislation and or pushback, whatever. But a lot of my social media feed is about doom and gloom, or how people can't afford to live, or how people of or how people are seeing that all the prices are increasing, inflation is going crazy, rent prices are going up, property prices are going up, and a lot of people are using it as a reason to not try. Mainly because it's a good reason. It's like, it's like fa like it's so hard to have a optimistic mindset unless you're in certain spaces. Uh, Optimistic mindset when the world around you seems to be crumbling, right? Like a lot of old heads of the previous generations are not going to understand how hard it is to get an entry level job because of AI. They're just not going to get it. Okay, like the plot of a AI or a robot coming in to take your jobs at some point was a movie plot in like the 1980s or some crap. Okay, the only difference is that I actually have to live it, and it's not some movie. It's here. You're done. Okay, okay. Uh, and at times, I despair over it. At times, I despair over the life that is coming. You know, uh, I don't know what's gonna happen in the future, and I get all emotional and I get all anxious inside of my heart because the world's gonna look so different 5 to 10 years from now, and I don't want to be in a spot where, frankly, I feel like I'm losing. I don't want to be poor and or I don't want to have no skills in the economy that is to come at all. And my dad always warned me about that stuff, but now that I'm really seeing it, I'm like, dang, I should probably lock in. Mainly due to my social media feed about the rising costs of stuff, the war in Hormuz affecting the world, um, and obviously I just talked about it. Robots are coming in and taking over our jobs. I definitely feel like, on an emotional level, that there's like literally no point in trying. Like there's no point in hoping for better because it's already over. Everything's already decided, you know. But in my emotion, right, in the waves of anxiety, in the waves of uncertainty, a thought sparks hope in my head. Okay, that I have to capitalize on this emotional time to get ahead, so that maybe I'll be in a better position. I was watching a clip in a podcast of this guy who was just like, if you don't grind right now, one of your family members might be in some terrible situation, and you, because you didn't grind today, 5 years from now, you're not going to be able to do anything about it. They're basically talking about how when a war broke out in their country, they had to get their uncle uh, to get out of the country, right? And that cost $2,000. Their parents didn't have the money. Their parents did not have the money. Their parents called him, but they never called for anything. And he was able to send over however much money to get his uncle, who was cherished among his family members. I'm not sure about him, but it doesn't really matter. But to get him out of the out of the dangerous country into a different country. Okay. And that story, I was just like, wow, you know what? That might be me. It may not be like as extreme as that, but like for example, if a loved one of mine gets cancer and the treatment's going to cost, I think when I looked it up, at least it's going to cost at least 150 to $500,000 in total for cancer treatment. At least when I looked it up. Would I be able to afford that on the path that I'm on currently? No. The answer is no. Okay, if there was a treatment out there to change someone's medical status from maybe dying or disabled, and I could pay for the medical bill to help make them feel better, to alleviate some level of stress without a year of financing or whatever they're going to be talking about. Like, would I be able to be in a position in order to do that? Like, people in my life are probably going to suffer at some point in time, but whether or not I'll be able to do something about it in the future is completely based on what I'm willing to do today. Hope. Hope. The hope that I have for myself, and I've already said this before, the hope that I have for myself is that I hope that I am able to get the proper skills to put myself in a position to where I don't necessarily have to worry about my job being taken over by robots, whether um, whether now whether I decide to start my own business, whether I decide to become a creative, whether I decide um, to get skills that are going to be useful in the future. you know I get to decide to try to make a way in an unsure world. I have hope that I will figure it out, a way to make it on the other side of success. My father used to tell me about all these stories about how he grew up poor and how he didn't have the luxuries that the average American would have growing up. And I think about his stories about how he overcame that. Like, sure, like my family is not like the most, we're not billionaires. I'm not no Nepo baby. I'm not a Nepo baby. But, no, I'm sorry, period, space bar, capital letter. I do know that I have it in my blood to overcome my current circumstances, at least historically. If my father was able to have what he have and grow in a way that would benefit him now, then why can't I do that today? It may not look the same, right? Like I said before, robots are coming to take over my job. My path of success is not going to look the same as his path of success, right? But I can't put myself in position to take advantage of it. A plan. You know, now that I've said all that stuff, I can feel anxious and unsure in my heart. I can think about ways to capitalize it, make plans in my head about all this stuff that I can do in order to get ahead. But guess what? It's not going to matter. It's not going to matter if I don't act on it. There are plenty of people in my life, online, whomever, who talk a big game of what they're going to do, who they're going to be, but they'll keep making every bad decision that's pulling them away from from in the opposite direction that they want to go in, whether it's financial, relational, physical. They're making some decision in their life to where they're like, I want to go this way, but instead I'm going this way. Okay. And the worst part is that they have nobody to blame but themselves, right? These people might blame the system. They might blame the man. They might blame these corporate companies. Whomever that pushes them away, they'll blame everybody but themselves. And that's not to say that people can't have any reasons why they can't succeed. My problem is that You're going to say all these stuff, speak about your dreams, but then you're going to do nothing to step into that. There was no attempt from you to grow in that direction. Like having all that enthusiasm wasted. Like I see why you're in the same place that you're in. I don't mean that offensively, but I hope what I'm saying makes sense. Some people may have opportunities they're not even thinking about. Or heck, even in the worst case scenario, they might not even have somebody or anybody there to tell them about their opportunities that they have. And that's what I really fear for. That's what I really feel for and fear for it. Is for the people who lack the knowledge. And well, this is not really about them. Anyway, my point is that hoping for stuff that you can't see while working for the things that you may be able to have is putting yourself ahead of at least 80% of people who have just given up completely in their minds or in their hearts or in their actions. A plan. Like, obviously, I'm talking a big game. And I talk about big game about a lot of stuff in my life. But one thing I do regret doing, and something I'm kind of like, I can still act on it still, but comic books, right? I have a bunch of comic book ideas and a bunch of notebooks that I just haven't touched. A bunch of manga ideas that I haven't really done anything with. They're just in they're in the storyboard phase. I haven't touched it, right? Um, and especially when I'm really feeling really in my in a flow state when I'm writing stuff, I go on and on in my own head and bragging in my own space, because I don't tell anybody about this stuff, in my own space about how great I'm gonna be when all this stuff drops and da 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 da, right? When I go to conventions, I always attend the comic book creators panel. That's almost always there when I'm attending, right? They'll be sitting there about how you make your own comic book, how to do it right. I'll be sitting there, absorbing the information and feeling prideful or feeling my ego about, like, yeah, well, all these people are out here having fun and learning about freaking all these characters that they love or whatever. I'm here, I'm grinding, I'm in this freaking panel room learning about all this stuff, right? Like, even now, like, now I know comic books need screenplays instead of actual like written novels, but I've not translated any of those comic book ideas that I have into screenplays or script. I forget what they're called, but ideas. The ideas that I have, the ideas that I have are not written to a screenplay is already a failure for me. Like, instead of relying on my wishful thinking that one day I'm just gonna lock in and do it, I don't act on it on a regular basis for that to come to fruition. And I really see that, especially when it comes to the gym, especially when it comes to, my learning process studying for my CompT exam. If I don't start doing it and continue on and get better at it and intentionally grow and maybe get a mentor or whatnot, then it's all for naught. It's all for nothing. My situation might be a little bit different because I'm in school, and technically speaking, I'm also in an internship. Well, the internship is kind of like school, but it doesn't really matter. But I am actively trying to get skills to make me a ton of money, so that way I can use that money to pursue my dreams. Now that doesn't mean I can't do anything today, and that's the thing I'm talking about. But I'm still doing something that may be able to benefit me 5 to 10 years from now, hopefully. Now, even with my comic book ideas, I can blame the comic book industry for being so complicated. The fact that I had to pay illustrators, or I have to draw my own stuff, or uh, I don't feel like drawing, or worse, if I had an idea and I didn't execute on it, and I read or watch uh, or read a comic or watch a animation or whatever about an idea that I also had, but they executed on. Like, I could blow it off and be like, they stole my idea, whatever, da 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 da, get all emotional about it. But the fact is that I didn't execute with a plan. I could feel, and I could be feeling those things 5 to 10 years from now because for the simple fact that I had an idea and I didn't execute it on today, but another person did. They paid for the illustrator. They wrote the screenplays. They did that over and over and over again, and it all worked out. And that could have been me. Hope involves a certain level of passion, and a plan involves a certain level of stoicism. And from where I am, I hope for the best, but I also plan for the best. At least the best I can, because that's all I can do. Do my best. Now, doing your best might look different from person to person, but we're always in a state of improvement. And that's what I encourage you to do. Hope for the best, plan for the best, and do the best you can. That's it. Triumphant Let It, code MINT, MINT, for 10% off your clothes. Shoot, man. Subscribe to my channel, that type of stuff. Adios.